Chris Ockenvoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In contrast to the previous member who's just spoken, who gave a spirited speech, but oh, such a sad one. In contrast to that, on May the 19th, the Honourable Bill English delivered a budget full of good news, particularly good news for West Coast Tasman, particularly in relation to health services. A responsible budget which clearly sets this government apart from the previous one. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Bill English gave us a rational national budget. I'm honoured to have the opportunity to speak here in support of this budget. I don't think, Mr. Speaker, I'll ever lose the sense of privilege that one has in standing in this House of Representatives. And it's on behalf of the people of West Coast Tasman that I'm standing here today, and it's their views I, in company with my national colleagues, work every day to represent the people who put us here. Mr. Speaker, I've been particularly busy in West Coast Tasman over the last 2 weeks, and I can tell you that people there have universally welcomed this budget. They were not looking for big election year handouts. Indeed, they were extremely concerned over the situation that the previous government had left the country in. They weren't looking for election bribes, spending priorities which place re-electing the government first and the well-being of the country second. They had enough of that. A distant second. Thank you, Dr. Calder. A distant second indeed. They had had enough of that from the 3 election year budgets delivered by Michael Cullen, who felt that, I always felt there was a touch of, oh, what a clever boy am I, as he pulled a plum out of the pie. The reality was he was so proud of clearing government debt. The reality was he encouraged private debt, which has gone through the roof. In fact, almost one could say forced private debt. In 2008, the people of the West Coast Tasman voted for a change. They voted for a national-led government because they knew that when tough times hit, we need sound economic management. And that is exactly what people have got from this government, and they will continue to get it. And they know that this is a responsible budget, a budget which will drive New Zealand forward, encourage job creation and boost incomes. This is what I hear everywhere that I go in the electorate. Well, yes, good guardians of the public purse. From the top of the electorate in Tasman, where I visit, horticulturalists, down to people in South Westland, that's what they're looking for, a firm budget which gets things right. The residents of Tasman District, an area in some ways sadly known as for its sunshine wages, know that the only way to increase wages is to grow our economy and to increase productivity. West Coasters know the only way to create new jobs is to build faster economic growth, as this budget does, and to encourage employers to take on staff. And we've introduced several ways that is facilitated in this budget and in other Labour legislation. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2011 clearly sets this government apart from previous governments. The previous Labour government had 9 years managing this economy, 9 years they could have spent preparing this country for tough times. They could have promoted national savings, encouraged the private sector to create jobs, and built a resilient economy and boosted export activity. And that's where there has been a large absence. Instead, at the end of their 9 years, we had a nation which spent $1.10 for every dollar we earned. It's as simpler as that. Louise Upson says she's shocked. I'm sure she is. $1.10 for every dollar we earned. We had a job growth, but it was in burgeoning public sector jobs. Jobs supported not by private innovation and entrepreneurship and income, but by hefty taxes on the job creators. And we were left with an economy ill-prepared for global financial recession, so much so that we actually went into recession before the rest of the world. Some things you don't want to be first in, and that was one of them. Joe Goodhue says it's an indictment on Labour, and I guess the country agreed with that. The country agreed with that, Steve Chadwick. The country spoke at the election. A national-led government has been left to sort out the mess, and the Prime Minister and his ministers have been working hard since day one just to do that. And I think any member of the government can testify just how hard our ministers work. Have you ever seen a minister spending surplus time in copper fields? I haven't. No. I haven't. Never. They work hard. Where the Labour government promoted spending and consumption and led by their own example, the National-led government in 3 successive budgets has turned that situation around. We're now a nation of savers and becoming ever more so. We now spend less than we earn, and the government has led the way by making value for money savings across public services and moving resources from the back office to the front line. This is a responsible budget. A responsible budget, I say to Steve Chadwick, who I know secretly agrees. A budget for growth and a budget that puts us on track to achieve surpluses by 2015. This is in stark contrast to the previous government. They had no plan for the economy, their policies, and even now, their policies are still to spend more on bureaucracy and tax the job creators. They keep listing the reversal of upper-level tax breaks as the way to correct the economy. They can't use a dollar more than once, but they keep using it as a solution for everything. Everything. Well, I've news for the new-look Labour Party. New Zealanders have longer memories than that, and apart from conversations I've had, and from the conversations I have had recently, I know that the people of the West Coast Tasman electorate have longer memories than that. They remember, Mr. Speaker, a Labour government which ran the economy into the ground, which increased bureaucracy and called it economic growth, and took them into a recession months before the rest of the world. On the West Coast, they remember a Labour government which all but destroyed the West Coast timber industry, and thank goodness National has reasserted it, and called them nasty names when they complained about it. In Tasman, they remember a Labour government which promised them a Ruby Bay bypass road every election year, election after election, and changed their mind as soon as it had worked to get them re-elected. Budget 2011 shows just how different the National-led government is, as Phil Goff's Labour Party have tried to distance themselves from their legacy too. Labour know they need a new change, but a new logo is no substitute for new faces. They need new talent, but one new face on the front bench won't cut it, especially when he's straight from the previous leader's office. Labour they know they need new policy, but if the best they can do is spend some more, hit up the rich pricks for some cash and shaft the farmers while you're at it, the clear message New Zealanders are getting is a run out of space. Not really. The clear message they're getting, one could say so much more, Brendan. One could say so much more. In fact, one has to restrict oneself talking about what Labour did or didn't do. But the message that New Zealand is sending to Labour is think again and try again. Because this budget is not tax and spend, it's save and grow. It's responsible, it looks to the future, it's balanced, it's a rational national budget. Because, Mr. Speaker, with national, rational and balanced is what you can expect, rational and balanced is what you get. I've already mentioned Labour and their tax and spend policies, but unlike parties to the right of us, this government will not slash and burn government spending without regard for those most vulnerable in our society who will be affected. Mr. Speaker, one of the most endearing things that I've experienced in being in this government was when the Prime Minister said at the beginning of the recession, and our awareness of it, we will not be affecting the most vulnerable, we will protect them. And we've gone ahead and done that, facing much criticism for borrowing to maintain the level of entitlements that people have been receiving. We know that the most vulnerable and the unemployed rely on government support, low-income families rely on working for families, and we all benefit from strong public services. Mr. Speaker, the National-led government will not slash these programs. This is why the government has borrowed through the recession to ensure we continue to support those who need it. That's why this budget is a responsible budget and a caring one. In short, a national, rational budget. Not for other people, a Labour government with a proven record of economic mismanagement. Not for them slash and burn policies which might give us quicker economic growth but leave people behind. For higher wages, more jobs, a stronger economy and continued support of our most vulnerable, I give you Budget 2011, a rational national budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.